أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد أما بعد. Okay, so alhamdulillah, last week we went through the muqaddimah of this text, and we said the word is pronounced as muqaddimah or muqaddama, both pertaining to the introduction, the first sort of madkhal, the entry to the text. And we went through this last week, alhamdulillah. Any student who has missed this, inshallah, they can easily go through this in the recording. So today, inshallah, we begin with the actual crux of the book, the first chapter, Ad-Dars al-Awwal. This is where the main text starts from, inshallah. Okay, so we'll be starting with this, inshallah. Okay, so we said the text is titled Ad-Durus al-Muhimmah li'ammat al-Ummah. These are important lessons for the general Ummah, for the general masses. Everything that a Muslim must know about their faith in order to be considered a functioning Muslim, someone who is practicing bi-idhnillahi ta'ala after the shahadatain. طيب, Ad-Dars al-Awwal. Ad-Dars al-Awwal, like we did last time, the pattern of the session will be that we'll read the passage and we'll learn the proper reading of it, inshallah. And you're supposed to mark this, inshallah, in your texts, in your copies, on your tablets, wherever you are, wherever you find this PDF, inshallah, wherever you keep this PDF. If you decide to print it, for example, inshallah. And for those who do not have the PDF yet, it's not a problem, inshallah. You can always go back to the recording and just do this specific part about doing the annotations on with regards to the tashkil, with regards to putting the marks, the fatha, dhamma, and kasra, okay, inshallah ta'ala. طيب, Bismillah. Ad-Darsul Awwalu. Okay, inshallah. Ad-Darsu, shadda on the dal. Ad-Darsu and dhamma on the sin. Ad-Darsu al-Awwalu. Ad-Darsu al-Awwalu. Okay. Ad-Darsu al-Awwalu. Dhamma on the sin, dhamma on the lam. Why is that the case? You will learn that, inshallah, in the grammar classes when we get to that point. For now, just try to absorb it naturally and write this down. Ad-Dars al-Awwalu. طيب. What is the first dars about? The first lesson. Ad-Dars al-Awwal. The first lesson. Suratul Fatihati wa qisar as-sur. Suratul Fatihati. Suratu al-Fatihati. Okay, dhamma on the first and kasra on this. Wa and qisaru as-suwari. طيب, surah means a chapter, and its plural is as-suwar. Suwar. As-suwaru. Over here it will be suwari, but the word is as-suwaru. Qisaru as-suwari. Join the ra with the sin. طيب, inshallah. Surah al-Fatihati wa qisaru as-suwari. Tamam. So the first lesson essentially is about learning the short surahs of the Quran. Okay, the Shaykh has decided to start the book with learning about the short surahs of the Quran, not with Aqidah, not with Tawheed, the conditions of La ilaha illallah and so on and so forth. All of that is secondary. طيب, the Shaykh assumes that you're just a layman, you're just a Muslim, طيب, and you've said your shahadatain, and you are an accepted Muslim, right? You've said the shahada and you're a Muslim, right? Nothing else is required from you at this stage. Everything is extra and secondary. Everything else is extra and secondary. So what do you need to start with? You need to start with understanding the basics of your deen from these surah. Okay, you learn them. You learn to recite these surah properly. You memorize these short surahs, and you understand their meanings. Okay, this will allow you to capture the crux of your faith, the crux of your theology, your aqidah, your beliefs, all of that with these surahs, inshallah. Okay. طيب, we'll come to the explanation in a bit. Let's move on. The Shaykh writes, Surah Al-Fatihati وما أمكن من قصار السور. سورة الفاتحة وما أمكن من قصار السور. قصار السور. تمام. The short surahs. قصار means short. So قصار السور. Again, من سورة الزلزلة. من سورة الزلزلة. من سورة الزلزلة إلى سورة الناس. من سورة الزلزلة إلى سورة الناس. طيب, تلقينا وتصحيحا للقراءة. تلقينا وتصحيحا للقراءة. للقراءة. وتحفيظا. تحفيظا. You can notice how all of these words have the same sort of pattern. تلقين, تصحيح, تحفيظ. So we call this the taf'eel pattern. تفعيل, تلقين, تصحيح, تحفيظ. Just start noticing these patterns inshallah from now on. Of course, we're still at the beginning stages, but as I've highlighted multiple times, try and notice these patterns inshallah. طيب, وشرحا لما يجب فهمه. شرحا لما يجب فهمه. لما, not lama, not lemma. These are actual words in the Arabic language, and if you pronounce them wrong, it will change the meaning, and in fact it would invalidate the meaning. وشرحا لما يجب فهمه. Okay, that's enough for the reading, inshallah, the tashkil. Let's look at the brief meanings, and then we'll jump into the explanation for this, inshallah. طيب. The first lecture, al-awwal, first, ad-darsu, lesson. The first lesson is on Surah Al-Fatihati wa Qisar al-Suwari, on the Surah Al-Fatiha and the short surahs towards the end of the Quran. And the Shaykh explains, Surah Al-Fatiha وَمَا أَمْكَنَ مِنْ قِصَارِ السُّورِ. What is the first important lesson for a normal Muslim to learn about? Is the Surah Al-Fatiha, its proper pronunciation, its tilawa, its memorization, and then its meanings. Okay, because Fatiha is essentially the summary of the Quran. The entire Quran can be summarized as the Fatiha. طيب, and some ulama, they have written volumes upon volumes on just the tafsir of Surah Fatiha. طيب, Surah Al-Fatiha is the heart of the Quran. It's essentially the crux of the Quran. Everything is summarized in Surah Al-Fatiha. طيب, the whole Quran is the explanation of Surah Al-Fatiha in all of its different variations and all of its different meanings. طيب, inshallah. So Surah Al-Fatiha is the first thing that a new Muslim learns. And the Shaykh, of course, when he used to teach, he used to mention these things, and then he would explain Surah Al-Fatiha, its sharh. He would do a small, brief tafsir of Surah Al-Fatiha, and then he would move on to the Qisar al-Suwar, the short surahs. What surahs are called Qisar al-Suwar? They start from Surah Al-Zalzala ila Surah Al-Nas. طيب, from Surah Al-Zalzala ila Surah Al-Nas to the end of the Mus'haf, to the end of the Quran, ila yani Surah Al-Nas. طيب, inshallah. So from Surah Al-Zalzala to Surah Al-Nas. Right, so Surah Al-Fatiha, so learning Surah Al-Fatiha is the first dars. وَمَا أَمْكَنَ, and what is possible from min qisari suwari, the shortest of the surahs. طيب, sure. What are those? Min Surah Al-Zalzala, from Surah Al-Zalzala ila to Surah Al-Nas, ila Surah Al-Nas. Don't say Surah Al-Nas, Surah Al-Nas, say ila Surah Al-Nas. Okay, we've mentioned this before because of the ila before it. Okay, some letters give the next word a kasra. They have an effect on it. Min surati. Ila surati. Min and ila are both from the same category of words, which give the next act on the next word to give it a kasra. We call them huruf jarrah or harf jar. Tamam. So min surati zalzalati ila surati nasi. طيب. تلقينا i.e. by absorbing it from the teacher, so listening to the teacher essentially. وتصحيحا للقراءة, and then reciting to the teacher where he corrects you with your recitation. وتحفيظا, and then memorizing. وشرحا لما يجب فهمه, and then explanation لما, for that which is يجب فهمه, its understanding. فهمه يجب is compulsory. Is compulsory. طيب. Is everyone with me so far on the reading of it and the brief explanation of the meanings of the words, inshallah? Are we ready for the explanation, for the commentary? Please give me a thumbs up in the chat. You can type a yes or okay or good in the chat, inshallah. Just let me know. Tamam, inshallah. Right, Uncle Umar, is it okay with you, inshallah? Should we continue, inshallah? Are you following well? Is everything okay? Please let me know in the chat, inshallah. Tamam. طيب. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So with this surah, and in this chapter, the Shaykh essentially is detailing the importance of teaching these surahs as a first point. This is the starting point for the education of the general masses. Okay? This is where you start your da'wah from. This is where you start the islah from. Okay? Da'wah and islah. These two words are used. Da'wah is of two types, of course. Is one for the non-Muslims and the other for the Muslims, with the intention of calling them back to Allah Azza wa Jal. This type of da'wah is called islah, to rectify the Muslims, to rectify the evils of the Muslim community. Tamam? And so, because this book is concerned with islah, essentially, the first point, the introduction to the book, the Shaykh makes it to be the education of the masses about the short surahs of the Quran. Okay? And the Shaykh has chosen Surah Fatiha and the Qisar al-Surah from Surah al-Zalzala to the end of the Quran, Surah al-Nas. Okay? Why? Because this much amount is more than enough for the general masses, the awamun nas, so that they can perform their prayers, so that they can pray. طيب, the compulsory prayers and the voluntary prayers. So the fard and the nafil, the sunnahs. طيب, which of course includes qiyam al-layl. Some people assume it to be the case that where you must know a lot of Quran before you can pray qiyam al-layl, tahajjud. طيب, which is wrong. Okay? Even if a person repeats a single surah, a short surah, طيب, and he spends his whole night, subhanallah, on just that surah, it will be enough for him to pray the Qiyam al-Layl, subhanallah. The evidence for that, the hadith, the famous hadith of Qatada ibn Nu'man, radiallahu anhu, قال, he said, إن رجلا قام في زمن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يقرأ من السحر. That a man, he stood in the time of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, reading from the beginning of his prayer, the sahar, all of his standing time in the salah, in the night. قل هو الله أحد, just this surah. لا يزيد عليها. He would not increase, he would not add on to this surah anything else. Subhanallah. Like he literally just read this surah. Subhanallah, whole night. فلما أصبحنا, so when we woke up, or when we entered the next morning, when we woke up the next morning, أتى رجل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. One man came to the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, فذكر ذلك له, and he mentioned this event to him. Okay, and so this man, of course, he prayed behind this person, or he prayed, and he prayed next to him. And the hadith says, وَكَأَنَّ الرَّجُلَ يَتَقَالَ لَهَا. It was as if this man who was coming to the Prophet ﷺ to complain sort of about what happened last night, as if this man كأن الرجل يتقال لها يعني he was a bit bored of it, طيب, and he felt it to be something trivial, of not much importance, طيب, and he didn't think of it much, that a person just keeps reading Surah Al-Ikhlas the whole night. Okay, subhanallah, and look at the way the Prophet ﷺ educates his Sahaba. فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, he starts with the qasam, he starts with a swear, an oath. He says, وَالَّذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِهِ, I swear by the one in whose hands is my soul. Subhanallah. He says, إِنَّهَا لَتَعْدِلُ ثُلُثَ الْقُرْآنِ. Indeed, this surah, Al-Ikhlas, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ, it equals a third of the Quran. Subhanallah. Imam Bukhari narrates this hadith. Famous hadith, very famous. So subhanallah, this tells us that even something as simple as Surah Al-Ikhlas is more than enough for someone to perform their prayers and for their prayers to be accepted. In fact, the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he was asked, can a person only recite Surah Al-Fatiha in his salah? So he said, yes, his salah will be valid, but if he recites something more, it will be better for him. So we learn from these ahadith that only Surah Al-Fatiha will have been enough. And then on top of that, if someone learns some of these other short surahs, inshallah, this will complete the fa'idah for the general masses, because these short surahs, they have in them sufficiency in terms of its meaning, because it teaches you so much about the qiyamah, about your aqidah, about the heart, the shaitan, and so on and so forth. It has so much meaning, these last surahs, subhanallah. And as well as there is another benefit, which is that the people when they learn that, or is that it? Is that all we need to learn? Just those surahs, just a few pages, just learn that, memorize that, understand that. Subhanallah, it makes it easy for them to absorb the religion of Allah Azza wa Jal. It gives them courage and motivation to attend the classes, to come forth and participate in this khair and seek knowledge. A lot of people, you must have seen this in your own lives, they're put off by seeking knowledge or even practicing to be clear, because they think that there's so much to do in the religion of Allah Azza wa Jal, and they can't possibly do everything. And even the thought of beginning somewhere seems too difficult, because of course, the famous, as they call it, well, you need to spend 10 years in a seminary to be able to even, read the Quran and open it and read it for yourself, and so on and so forth, right? Thanks to the cultish following that some of the schools of thought have built over the centuries, right? The deen of Allah is far from it, subhanallah, right? In any case, so another reason why we may assume that the Shaykh has chosen this particular group of surahs for the education of the masses as a beginning point would be the hadith of Abdullah ibn Amr ibn As. He said, أتى رجل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال, a man came to the messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم, and he said, أقرئني يا رسول الله, read to me, O messenger of Allah, teach me something of the Quran. فقال, the Prophet, he replied to him, he said, اقرأ ثلاثا من ذوات ألف لام را, read the three surahs which start with Alif Lam Ra. فقال كبرت سني واشتد قلبي وغلظ لساني. He said, O Messenger of Allah, I have become old in age, and my heart has turned tough. My heart has become hardened. It is difficult for me to absorb things. وَغَلُظَ لِسَانِي, and my tongue has become heavy. It's difficult for my tongue to learn and memorize much. And because, of course, memorization depends on repetition. You have to repeat things a few times to memorize. قال, so the Prophet ﷺ, he said to him, فَقْرَأْ ثَلَاثًا مِنْ ذَوَاتِ حَمِيمٍ. Then read the three surahs which start with Hamim. فَقَالَ مِثْلَ مَقَالَتِهِ. He said exactly the same thing as he said the first time. فَقَالَ الرَّجُلُ, so the man, he said, Ya Rasulullah, at the end, after fearing that he can't do anything that the Prophet ﷺ is telling him, he said, Ya Rasulullah, O Messenger of Allah, أقرئني سورة جامعة. Recite to me, teach me. In the word أقرئني refers to teach me something to recite. أقرئني سورة جامعة. أقرئني سورة جامعة. Read to me a comprehensive surah. One surah which is comprehensive, right? Which covers much of the Quran in terms of its meanings that I can learn and recite, and inshallah it will be kafin shafin for me. It will be sufficient for me بإذن الله تعالى. فأقرأه النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. So the Prophet, he read to him and taught him إذا زلزلت الأرض زلزالها حتى فرغ منها, until he finished from the surah. Okay? So the man became happy and he said, فقال الرجل والذي بعثك بالحق. I swear by the one who sent you with the truth, لا أزيد عليها أبدا. I will not increase upon this ever. I will never look beyond this. Subhanallah. Because he loved the surah so much, and in his heart found contentment that this is, subhanallah. Of course, they were Arabs, subhanallah, and the Arabic was their mother tongue, and they understood the miracle of the Quran and with its lugha and its language. Understanding Surah Al-Zalzala can give you almost anything that you need for your tadhkir, for your reminder, for your tazkiyah, for the cleanliness of your body and your heart and your mind. Subhanallah. If you really ponder over its meanings. Subhanallah. It's enough to shake you every single day, in every single salah. And he understood this, the man who said, وَالَّذِي بَعَثَكَ بِالْحَقِّ لَا أَزِيدُ عَلَيْهَا أَبَدًا. I will never increase upon this. I will never look beyond this. ثُمَّ أَدْبَرَ الرَّجُلُ. Then the man, he returned. فقال النبي, so the Prophet ﷺ, he said to his companions, أفلح الرويجل. This weak man, أفلح, he succeeded. Subhanallah. And he said it مرتين. He said it twice. أفلح الرويجل, أفلح الرويجل. Subhanallah. Okay? So we learn from this that for a common man, for a layman, it is more than enough to memorize the short surahs from Surah Al-Zalzala to Surah Al-Nas, or he just resides on a few of them. It will be sufficient for him, inshallah. Okay? For if the Prophet ﷺ is saying for a man like this man, who just thought to suffice himself with Surah Al-Zalzala, that's it. And the Prophet said about him, Aflaha, subhanallah. What do you think about the person who memorizes this surah? Or he goes beyond and, subhanallah, he memorizes all the rest of the short surahs and understands them? Definitely, inshallah, فَهُوَ مِنَ الْمُفْلِحِينَ. Definitely, inshallah, he's from those who will be successful in the hereafter, بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى, inshallah. Okay, so this manhajiyah, this methodology of putting forth the education of the short surahs of the Quran first before anything else, right? As we've said previously, it gives the layman, the normal people, the normal Muslims, the general masses, this motivation, subhanallah, to come and learn and memorize the Quran. طيب? So when you say to them, for example, it's only these surahs, it's only a few pages, subhanallah, from just Zalzala and Nas, right? And we can do it in a month's time or 2 months' time, for example. And if someone is older, 3 months, 4 months' time maximum, right? Go to your work, attend to your business, your family and stuff. But just after Isha, before you go home, after the salah, we'll just sit for half an hour, for example, 40 minutes, and we'll repeat these surahs together, learn the tajdeed and learn its basic meanings, inshallah. And that's it. You don't need much. You can continue doing you can continue going about your day-to-day life, inshallah. You don't have to sacrifice much. Quran is easy. The deen of Allah Azza wa Jal is easy. Inna dina yusr. Indeed, the religion of Allah Azza wa Jal is yusr, is easy. And we should yassiru wa la tu'assiru. As the Prophet used to say to his Sahaba, he used to advise them, yassiru wa la tu'assiru. Make ease and do not make things difficult. Okay? And this is the methodology of the Prophet in teaching the masses. This is where the da'wah, it starts, making the deen of Allah accessible and easy and full of motivation for the people. Okay? So when the person, subhanAllah, when he learns that this is all he needs to learn to fulfill the functions of his ibadah, and of course it's a small portion, his care and his eagerness to learn these surahs and its meanings, it becomes much, much more profound. Okay? He knows it's only a few pages, so he's bent on, okay, I'm going to memorize them, inshallah. I'm going to understand its meanings, inshallah. And even to the point where if someone, like I've seen people, subhanAllah, and it's a fact that when you limit yourself to a few things, you can go much more deeper into its meanings and its applications and implications than someone who's a broad generalist. The jack of all trades is a master of none, as it's said famously, right? And so, subhanAllah, even some people, normal people, I've seen them with such insight, such profound basira, that it outshines even some of the greatest scholars in some of the things of the deen, with the simplicity and profoundness and depth, the way they understand some elements of the religion, especially such as the fact of dying one day and being raised again, and for that, spending your wealth for the sake of Allah, for example, and so on and so forth, right? And giving da'wah. I mean, think about Dr. Zakir Naik, for example. Dr. Zakir Naik, may Allah preserve him, he never calls himself a scholar, and he's not a scholar. He's a da'i, tayyib, and the Shaykh has spent most of his life calling people to Allah Azza wa Jal using the most simplest of so to call arguments, right? Nothing complicated as we find today in the dawah scene. And his dawah had the most barakah that I've ever seen in my lifetime, subhanAllah. Okay? The dawah is very simple, it's very uncomplicated, it's straight to the point, and it's very, very approachable for the normal man. That it appeals to the normal masses. Most people cannot relate to this philosophic kind of dialectical dawah that is going on these days, ta'ib, inshallah. So subhanAllah, I once attended one of his lectures, the Shaykh, and he explained, he was deconstructing Christianity just from and deconstructing any other false religion just based on Surah Al-Ikhlas. And visiting him after such a long time, I realized that, sometimes, we really overcomplicate things. His methodology was so simple, and it really touched the heart. It really reminded me of the simpler days back in the day when we used to, watch some of his lectures and, be inspired by his, da'wah, encouraging the public and so on and so forth. Right? That was inspiration for a lot of youngsters back in the day, and perhaps it still is. طيب. So the people, when they, inshallah, learn that it's not a lot they need to learn, it's very simple, inshallah. So the person, a da'i, and because our program is focused on da'wah, we have to remind the students again and again that the way, inshallah, when you start teaching the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, when you become du'at, when you learn this book, once we finish this book, of course, you're going to teach this book, right? Right after, as we've said previously. You will realize the importance of this methodology. This book is tried and tested for many, many years, in fact, decades. The Shaykh, I think he taught this over 2 decades, subhanAllah, in his life. And he refined this with according to the needs of the community, right? And so the Muslims, the first thing, inshallah, is to give them encouragement and motivation that look, subhanAllah, the deen of Allah is easy. Come to the masjid, come to these halaqat of knowledge, and we'll just teach you Surah Al-Fatiha in terms of its tajweed, in terms of its memorization and its meaning. And then zalzala and its hifdh and its meaning. And then any surah after that, subhanAllah. And it's just a small portion, come and attend. And if someone completes this, subhanAllah, then we can say, you know what, if you're still interested and you want to continue doing this, going down this path, inshallah, then join a hifdh program, which is slow paced and you can manage it in your own time, inshallah. Give them all the guidance, and we let them go on down the path of seeking knowledge formally. طيب? Inshallah. So you start to build a small community around you as you finish this book, inshallah. You gather a few friends or family members, you sit them down, inshallah, and as I am doing this with you, you will continue this da'wah with others. طيب? You don't have to explain to them all of these things, of course, as I'm explaining to you, because this is part of our mentorship, right? I have to train you into du'at, inshallah. You will explain to them the benefits and of choosing these short surahs and how the deen is easy and so forth, just to give them motivation and tell them, look, you know, inshallah, it's not a lot. Let's finish these surahs, let's learn about them and its meanings and so on and so forth. Tamam? طيب. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Okay, now let's talk about these terms that the Shaykh has mentioned. تلقينا وتصحيحا للقراءة وتحفيظا وشرحا. The way these surahs are taught to the masses, the Shaykh essentially, rahmallah, he summarized them in these 4 words. Okay, these are 4 steps that the Shaykh has sort of visualized and put them in words for you as a student and da'i. The first step is at-talqeen. At-talqeen, what is at-talqeen? Refers to the reciting of the imam or any reciter or hafidh, ayah at a time, an ayah at a time, upon the student. So the student, he pays attention and he listens to it attentively, paying attention, focused, right? He listens to it once or twice or thrice and so on and so forth. طيب. And then he moves on to the second step. Okay, the Quran is learned through this. This is how the Quran used to be learned back in the day, through talqeen. This is the kids with the strongest memorization in the Badia of Africa and Mauritania, for example, they are the ones who have taken the Quran through listening, not even through writing or reading from the Mus'haf. طيب. And I remember when we were young, we used to have a teacher come to our house, and the Ustad, he used to just, make us recite the surahs after him. And we learned so much. I memorized Surah Al-Mulk at that time, Surah Al-Rahman, and a lot of the short surahs back in the day, just through talqeen, listening and repeating after him. Okay, so this is what talqeen is. You listen to the teacher and you repeat after them. طيب, inshallah. طيب. The second thing is تصحيح للقراءة. So once the teacher has recited upon the student, and the student has listened carefully and attentively, he starts to recite. He starts to recite back to the teacher now. And so the shaykh or the teacher or the hafidh, his responsibility now is to correct his recitation, طيب, and make sure that it does not have any, first of all, as a first step, any major mistakes. Some people will be older in age. Some people will be, as we have in amongst us, reverts. Some people will come from a community where it's difficult for them to read the Quran properly. Okay? For example, if we have a Muslim from, I don't know, some parts of Africa or Russia, for example, some countries where it's difficult to pronounce certain letters, that like the ayn or dad, for example, or dha. These letters are somewhat difficult for these specific language speakers, right? And of course, reverts they're completely new to this language and culture, so it's difficult for them. So it's very important that they pay attention, and then their recitation is corrected by the teacher. So inshallah, بإذن الله تعالى. That's the second step. And then the Shaykh says tahfidhan. The third step, of course, then, once you've learned this, you have to memorize, right? You have to memorize it. So the student, he memorizes what he has received from his teacher through talqeen, and he has read back to him and has received corrections, and he knows he's reciting correctly. So the student, he repeats it. حسب الكفاية يعني as many times as is needed for that portion to become permanent in his heart. And of course, we've detailed the best methodology of memorization in our masterclass on memorizing the Quran, inshallah. So everyone has seen that. Everyone has attended that lecture. If anyone wants to go into that detail, they can visit that masterclass again. But just to briefly put, of course, it comes down to repetition. Take small portions and repeat them enough times that it becomes permanent. Some people, of course, they memorize, they have to repeat like 50 times, 100 times, 200 times to make it permanent. Others, they look at it once or twice and they memorize it. طيب. In either case, طيب, take a smaller portion, طيب, according to your ability, without any sort of burden from others. I have a friend, he was complaining that, mashallah, he joined a very, very good program, but because everyone memorizes so fast and he has a full-time business, he can't cope up with the memorization. And subhanAllah, even though the teacher is not pushing him, he just feels the burden. So you shouldn't feel the burden. Just take your time, go slowly, take a small portion, and decide and test yourself on how many repetitions you need. We recommend that you don't do more than 3 to 5 lines, and each portion that you've memorized well, by just testing yourself a few times, before you finish the session, you repeat it at least 15 to 20 times initially, and then you repeat that portion 3 to 5 lines in every single salah and for the next 24 hours until you are ready to move on to the next portion. So this is what we've read. But anyway, the bottom line is that you have to memorize it well to the point, and you have to repeat to the point where it becomes permanent in your heart. It becomes strong and solid. Then comes the fourth step, the fourth stage, which is, of course, understanding the meaning, the sharh of the compulsory meanings of these surahs. Everything that is compulsory for a Muslim to know out of these surahs, the person goes through the sharh of that. So the tafsir of the meanings of these surahs, okay, an explanation of what the surahs point towards, what they imply, what are the applications, what are the practical lessons for the Muslim to learn and take away from these surahs, and so on and so forth. Okay, starting from Surah Al-Fatiha, and then of course starting from Surah Al-Zalzala until Surah Al-Nas. Okay, inshallah. So this is essentially in a nutshell just the first point, which is the methodology that the Shaykh has highlighted and its benefits for the general da'wah and education of the masses. Tamam? Before we move on to the second dars, what we're going to do is, inshallah, we're going to look at each of these surahs, Surah Al-Fatiha, Al-Zalzala, and so on and so forth, and we're going to take a brief tafsir. I'm going to give you guys, inshallah, a brief tafsir of each of these surahs, bi-idhni ta'ala. So we are, inshallah, learning through all the compulsory knowledge that we need to learn. So with regards to the tajweed and its recitation, you will learn that in your Hifdh Halaqa starting from tomorrow, inshallah. Okay, the teachers, they will test you, they'll get to know you, inshallah, and then inshallah, starting from onwards from this week and so on and so forth, you will start to practice with them. So inshallah, they'll start with Surah Al-Fatiha, and then after Fatiha they'll start with the short surahs. Tayyib, inshallah. So everything will be done in that manner. The goal is, before Ramadan, you read the last couple juz and some portion of Surah Al-Baqarah, so that we know that inshallah you're ready to start memorizing the Quran. Tamam? Inshallah. Okay, so before we end this session today, inshallah, we will look at the tafsir of the brief tafsir, a very, very brief tafsir, inshallah, just to make a start on the tafsir section, inshallah, of A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajim. طيب, I'll make a start today. We'll look at a basic tafsir of A'udhu Billah. طيب, inshallah. And then next week we'll carry on with a bit more detail to it. But I'm going to focus a lot on these two initial lines, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim and Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We're going to focus on these two in somewhat depth, inshallah, and then we'll reduce the depth and we'll just take the general compulsory sort of important meaning of these surahs for anything beyond these two, inshallah. The reason why I want to give you guys a bit of a depth to these two is to show you the beauty of the Quran and its language, first of all. Secondly, because of the importance of these two statements, ta'awudh and then al-bad'u bismillah, bi bismillah, tayyib, starting with the name of Allah Azza wa Jal. Tamam, inshallah. So this is very important that we, inshallah, spend a few sessions, 2 to 3 sessions, inshallah, understanding these two statements deeply because of the depth that they have, right? The meanings of Ar-Rahman, the meanings of Ar-Rahim, and of course before that, the meanings of Shaitan and Ar-Rajim and so on and so forth, bi-idhni ta'ala. And what does A'udhu mean? What does Ta'awudh mean in terms of the qadr of Allah Azza wa Jal? So these are important topics in terms of Aqidah as well, in terms of belief as Muslims, so that we want to cover. And then inshallah we'll ease it a bit and we'll just go through the general tafsir of these surahs, inshallah. طيب. So starting with the ta'awudh, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. So this statement, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, we call this al-isti'adha. I'm hoping everyone is taking notes, inshallah. It's called al-isti'adha, to seek a'udh, to seek protection, refuge. Okay, al-isti'adha is the act of seeking ta'awudh. What is isti'adha? Isti'adha is firstly iltija ila Allah. Okay, an yu'idha abda. It is a sincere plea to Allah that He provides refuge to His slave. What is isti'adha? It's a sincere plea and a demand and a question of refuge from Allah, that He provides refuge to His slave and that He protects him from a shaitan al-rajim, from Satan, the cursed. طيب, inshallah. Is that clear for everyone? Is everyone with me so far? Please stop me if I am going too fast. Very important that you guys stop me if I go too fast at any point. Write this down, inshallah, okay? Jamil. So it is a plea or demand from Allah Azza wa Jal, a talab from Allah. You seek from Allah Azza wa Jal that He provides you refuge, or He provides refuge to His slave, and that He protects him from the cursed shaitan. That's in a nutshell. Okay? Inshallah. And in our deen, the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, it is legislated, it is compulsory that isti'adha is made. A person seeks refuge with Allah Azza wa Jal before he starts to recite the book of Allah, Al-Quran. Okay? It is compulsory that before you recite the Quran, you must say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. That is, when you are beginning to recite the Quran in a session, for a session, right? So when you start a session, you start with A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. And if there's let's say you were reciting the Quran, you said A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, and you recited the Quran for some time, and then you had to go do a chore in the house for some reason. So, and you come back. Do you say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim right now again? Yes, because you've taken a longer gap. But if it's something like, let's say someone walks in and you say salam to them and they just go back, then you have two options. You can, for the sake of clarity and protection, and because it's dua, so you get the ajr and it's ibadah, you say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim again. طيب. If not, then it's fine. طيب. Because you're still in the same majlis, you're still in the same sitting, you haven't abandoned that sitting, you're still engaged in the Quran. You've just had a distraction. طيب, inshallah. But when you start a new session, when you leave your place and you go and you do some work and you come back and you want to start again, you must, inshallah, read the isti'adha, the words of ta'awudh. Okay? طيب. Why is it compulsory? Why do we recite this? Why is it must? Why is it a must that we must recite isti'adha before the reading of the book of Allah Azza wa Jal? Because the shaitan he is the most adamant. His greatest ambition is to turn a slave of Allah Azza wa Jal away from this great book, and to turn him away from becoming successful with its guidance, and turning him away from spending time understanding the meanings of the Quran, exploring the themes and the topics of the Quran, and being inspired by it and affected by the Quran. That is the greatest ambition of the shaitan. طيب. So it is legislated that a slave, an abd, he or she, they begin their reading of the Quran with the isti'adha, by seeking refuge from Allah Azza wa Jal, by saying A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, so that their recitation, their qira'ah of the Kitabullah is a qira'ah which is protected from the wasawis of the shaitan, from the hams of the shaitan, and from the nafkh of the shaitan, as well as from the nafth of the shaitan. Okay? Protected by the protection of Allah Azza wa Jal Himself. Okay? What do we mean by wasawis and hams and nafkh and nafth? These 4 terms are very important for you to learn, inshallah. So we'll quickly go through these terms, then the meanings of shaitan and then al-rajim, and we'll end the session over there for today. طيب. Right. In English, just to quickly explain the meanings of these words. Basically, wasawis are whisperings. Okay? The whisperings of the shaitan, the kind of thoughts that the shaitan puts in the mind and the heart of a believer to distract them. To distract them from Allah, from His religion, and turn them towards His disobedience. Okay? So all of that is wasawis. And wasawis is a general term. Then there's 3 specific types of wasawis, or 3 specific types of ill actions or ill deeds that the shaitan he does towards Banu Adam, the children of Adam alayhi salam. What is that? Al-hams wal-nafth wal-nafth wal-nafkh. طيب. So hams refers to prodding, sort of to play with the physical elements of the body. Nafkh is filling the heart, the spiritual side of the body, with arrogance, so inflating his ego and so on and so forth. And nafkh is essentially to blow, right? To inflate. And then nafth refers to the throwing of words such that turn someone away from Islam. So it's a type of viswas, but more specifically in the hadith, these 3 words are described as such. The hams is described in the hadith as al-mawtatu as-sar'u, the death by epilepsy. Okay? What we see from the deaths caused by a certain type of seizure and epilepsy, a lot of those types of deaths are from the shaitan. Okay? That is what hams is. Hams refers to al-mawtatu as-sar', death by epilepsy or death by seizure, right? I think I'm roughly translating them. Please correct me if certain translations are not making sense. So epilepsy is a certain type of seizure, right? I'm thinking. So asar refers to epilepsy in the normal dictionaries, inshallah. But if someone wants to correct me, inshallah, they can. Al-mawt al-sar, a death by epilepsy or seizure. طيب. That's what Hams refers to. That's what the word Hams refers to in the Sunnah, in the Hadith. طيب. Nafkh refers to inflating or inflation of the ego. So it refers to al-kibr. Okay, this is what occurs in the hearts of the people. طيب. And this is caused by the shaitan. So what happens essentially is that a person, the shaitan, he inflates their ego. He whispers in their hearts with thoughts of arrogance and ego, such that it inflates the ego so much that a person, he starts to assume arrogance over the rest of the slaves of Allah. He starts to think of himself as someone distinguished. So they become haughty and arrogant. So these are the two critical terms. Al-Hams, Hams with the Ha, Mim and Za. Not Dhal, Za. Hams. Tamam. And Nafkh is Nun, Fa and Kha. Nafkh, okay? Nafkh literally refers to inflation. طيب. And then Nafth, and Nafth refers to, in the Sunnah, as just come in the Hadith, Ash-Shi'r al-Madhmum, blameworthy poetry or verse. Okay, any verse, any type of speech, normally in the form of poetry or verse, which is blameworthy. Okay, why? Because this type of poetry is whispered into the hearts of the people by the shaitan, and this type of poetry or verse includes things which Allah Azza wa Jal has made haram. Okay, from flirting with the woman, from calling to zina, or towards intoxication, or any other muharramat that you can imagine other than these. Okay, but mostly musiqa, music, and of course even the words that are used, that are sung, poetry or verse or any other rhyming prose, any such thing that is designed to excite the body, the mind, with flirtatious, lustful inclinations, and calling towards muharramat like zina and intoxication and free mixing and shirk and so on and so forth. All of these things are from the nafth of the shaitan. Okay, from the nafth of the shaitan. And this is what we say to our brothers who are unfortunately blinded by the munkar that is happening in the different countries, but mostly what saddens us is what is happening in Bilad al-Haramain, in the name of Mawsim al-Riyadh, the Riyadh season. They invite these Satanists and musicians, and when they come, they recite such poetry and poems which categorically commits shirk and spreads indecency in the lands of the Muslims. طيب. So all of this is definitely from the amal al-shaytan, and those who are inviting such people, they are blameworthy, right? They are sinful. طيب. And the duty of the Muslims is to, at least on a basic level, understand what is right and what is wrong, and protect themselves and their families on the minimum level, at a basic level, from the fitna, know what is haram, and despise the haram in their hearts. طيب. To know what is good and love the good, and want the good, and make dua for the good to become part of your life. The khair, which is for this dunya and the akhirah. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. O Allah, provide us the best for this dunya, in this dunya, and akhirah, and the best for the akhirah, وقنا عذاب النار, and protect us from the punishment, the torment of the fire, the hellfire. Okay, inshallah. So this is in brief the meanings of the three terms, hams, nafkh, and nafth. So the hams is normally is translated as prodding, as in prod someone, right? But in Sunnah, more technically, it refers to a death by epilepsy. Nafkh refers to inflation, to inflate someone, and technically in the Sunnah it refers to kibr, arrogance, to inflate someone's ego. This is what shaitan does. And nafth is the whispering or inspiration of the shaitan, or inspiring the man or human being with words or prose or poetry, anything that is blameworthy and filled with sinful elements. Tamam. Coming back, inshallah, to the ta'awudh. Ash-shaytan. Who is a shaitan? Shaitan is someone who is misguided and he misguides others. Okay, we'll look at the reason why we're translating this as these two different translations. Someone who is misguided within himself and he misguides others. Someone who is sinful and he incites sinfulness in others. Okay? So a shaitan is someone who is sinful himself, he's disobedient himself, and he incites others towards disobedience. Okay? He is a transgressor, and he is someone who causes others, as slaves of Allah, to transgress. He's someone, on a third point, he's someone who wants to prevent people, the ibad of Allah, servants of Allah, from the obedience of Allah Azza wa Jal. Okay? He wants to, from submission to Allah Azza wa Jal. That is what shaitan is, in terms of its linguistic meaning. Ar-Rajim is someone who is mal'oon, cursed. Who is cursed, firstly. Secondly, someone who is al-mub'ad min rahmatillah. Someone who is sent far away. Someone is thrown far away from the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. Okay? And so, because the shaitan is cursed, he is thrown away from he's cast away from the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal, and he's someone who is disdained. He wants the same for the rest of creation. Okay? So, because he is far removed from the mercy of Allah, he wants others to be removed from the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. Okay, so he acts in all these different ways to misguide you and to take you away from the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. The worst thing that he can do to you is to take away your tawheed as you die. And subhanallah, so many people, when they're affected by black magic or evil eye and so on and so forth, the first thing they do is resort to some form of shirk or some sort of innovation. طيب. And this is what the shaitan wants. People think, okay, going to someone, a soothsayer or someone who can cure them quickly using some sort of white magic, assuming that to be halal, for example. They think that this is something that will cure them. And of course it does cure them, because of course the shayateen who are involved in harming them, they just stop harming them for a bit, because they're essentially selling the soul, right? They're not there to cause you cancer or to take your eyesight away or to give you epilepsy and so on and so forth. The main job of the shayateen is to take your iman away from your hearts, right? And so the shaitan, his greatest ambition is to turn you away from the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal and take your iman. So he does these things where he affects your aqidah. He affects your belief in Allah Azza wa Jal. He affects your iman. And when I say aqidah, iman, tawheed, all of these words are essentially synonymous to each other. All of them refers to the one word which is called al-iman. Al-iman billah. Okay? Iman, the word iman refers to all of these things. The aqidah, belief, our worldview. All of these things refers to al-iman in al-Islam. Okay. طيب. So Allah Azza wa Jal, He demands from his slave that he seeks refuge with him from this shaitan, okay, this disobedient, this outcast, and someone who is rejected by Allah Azza wa Jal, okay, who always and ever works to turn the man away from the obedience of Allah, to turn the man away from the worship of Allah, and to turn the man away from succeeding in achieving the mercy of Allah and His favor on the Day of Judgment. Tamam? Okay, inshallah. So we've learned a lot today in terms of these things, but as I've said, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot to discuss in this regard, inshallah, and we'll continue with this next session. Tayyib. Now is the time for you to ask your questions, if there are any. Barakallahu feekum. If there are any questions, inshallah, we will take them now. So inshallah, I'll just end the recording and then we'll continue with the Q&A, inshallah.